When a woman falls deeply in love, something unexpected often begins to happen. She starts to withdraw, pull back, or even ignore the very man she has powerful feelings for. This confuses many men. You think love should make her more available, more affectionate, more open. But the opposite happens. Why? Because love doesn't just awaken joy. It awakens fear. And fear is a powerful emotional force that drives people to protect themselves, even from the very thing they desire the most. You see, love is vulnerability. It strips away layers. It opens up the emotional self and makes us feel exposed, raw, and deeply seen. For a woman, especially one who may have been hurt before, falling in love is not just exciting, it's terrifying. The more she feels for you, the more she realizes what she stands to lose, and the more she stands to lose, the more her survival instincts take over. That survival instinct doesn't show up with kindness and calm. It shows up as withdrawal, distance, and at times, complete emotional shutdown. Many women are not consciously aware they're doing this. It's not calculated, it's not a game, it's not manipulation. It's an emotional defense mechanism, one deeply rooted in past experiences, childhood patterns, and subconscious programming. Maybe she's been betrayed. Maybe she's lost trust in men. Maybe she's never felt safe in her feminine energy before. Whatever the cause, the effect is the same. The moment she feels real love, she also feels a surge of fear. That fear doesn't make her act rationally. It makes her hide. She'll avoid calls. She'll delay texts. She'll give you the cold shoulder, not because she doesn't love you, but because she's overwhelmed by how much she does. This is where most men go wrong. They take it personally. They begin to panic, obsess, and spiral into insecurity. They think, she must not love me, or worse, she's losing interest. But what's really happening is that her heart has reached a point of deep emotional recognition, and now it's clashing with the unhealed wounds of her past. Her love for you becomes a mirror that reflects every fear she's buried. And when people aren't ready to face that reflection, they turn away. What's important to understand here is that her withdrawal isn't a rejection of you, it's a confrontation with herself. She's not pushing you away because you've done something wrong. She's pulling back because her nervous system is trying to figure out if she's safe. She's asking herself, can I trust this love? Will I be hurt again? Is this real, or is this going to fall apart like the last time? And those questions have nothing to do with your worth. They're entirely rooted in her internal landscape. A woman deeply in love doesn't always express it in flowery language or romantic gestures. Sometimes she expresses it through silence. Sometimes through confusion. Sometimes through distance. But beneath that emotional armor is a heart longing to feel safe. Longing to be reassured. Longing to be loved, but terrified of what that love might cost her. And until she feels emotionally secure, she may hide behind walls that don't reflect her true intentions. This is where emotional maturity comes into play. If you are operating from a place of neediness, if you are triggered by her silence, if you start chasing her for validation, you fall into the trap her subconscious is setting up. Not intentionally, but inevitably, because now, instead of being a calm and grounded presence, you become part of her emotional storm. She feels your anxiety, she feels your desperation, and those feelings only validate her fear that love isn't safe. But if you can hold your ground, if you can remain calm, centered, and full within yourself, she begins to sense a different kind of energy. An energy that reassures rather than pressures, that steadies rather than reacts, that leads rather than chases. What most men don't realize is that women don't fall for men who panic under pressure. They fall for men who can hold emotional space, even when things get unclear. If she's withdrawing, it's not your job to fix her. It's your job to stay rooted, to know your value, to trust the connection, to give her the space to come back, not out of guilt or pressure, but from genuine emotional clarity. Because when she senses that your love is not reactive, but intentional, patient, and consistent, she starts to feel safe. And when she feels safe, the walls come down. The love that once triggered her fear starts to soothe it. And that's when the relationship transforms. Everything in this universe is energy. The words you speak, the thoughts you think, the emotions you feel. All of it carries a vibration. You may not see it, but you're constantly broadcasting an energetic signal into the world, and others, especially women who are emotionally intuitive, can feel it without a single word being spoken. When a woman begins to ignore you even though she's deeply in love, her behavior is often a reflection of what she senses from you, not just what she sees. Stronger, her reaction isn't always about what you do wiser. You might be doing all the right things, texting her, complimenting her, showing up consistently, but if underneath all of that there is a vibration of neediness, self-doubt, or emotional instability, she will feel it, and when she feels that, she instinctively pulls back. It's not because she doesn't care, it's because the energy you're projecting doesn't feel safe. Women are not logical in the way they connect emotionally. They don't analyze every move the way you might think. They feel their way into connection. So if what they're feeling from you is desperation, confusion, or internal chaos, they may withdraw not to hurt you, but to protect themselves from getting emotionally flooded. This is why raising your vibration is not just a spiritual concept, it's a relationship necessity. Your inner state becomes the emotional climate of the relationship. If your inner world is filled with fear, frustration, or obsessive thoughts, you create a field of instability around you. And that instability is something she doesn't know how to process, even if she has deep feelings for you. She may not be able to articulate it, but something will feel off. She may begin to doubt her own emotions. She may feel anxious when she's around you. She may not understand why she's suddenly distancing herself, but it's because on an energetic level, your frequency no longer aligns with emotional safety. Think about it this way: when you're confident, calm, and grounded, people naturally want to be near you. They feel at ease. Your presence becomes magnetic. But when you're tense, unsure, or projecting insecurity, people start to back away. It's not always intentional, it's energetic. And in intimate relationships, this becomes amplified. The closer a woman is to you emotionally, the more sensitive she is to your emotional state. So if you're spiraling internally thinking she's losing interest, fearing rejection, questioning your worth, she feels that tension. Even if you don't say a word, she can sense the imbalance. And because love makes her emotionally open, that imbalance feels even more dangerous. So she pulls back, not because she wants to, but because your energy no longer feels aligned with the connection she desires. This is why doing the internal work is not optional, it's essential. If you want to attract and maintain a deep emotional connection, you must learn how to regulate your internal world. You must become aware of what you're projecting energetically. Are you showing up from a place of fullness, or are you coming from a space of emotional lack? Are you confident in yourself, or are you using her attention to fill a void inside of you because she can tell? She may not say it out loud, she may not even know why she's pulling away, but the emotional energy you carry either pulls her in or pushes her away. Raising your vibration doesn't mean pretending to be positive or acting like everything's okay. It means doing the deep inner work to clear the fear, self-doubt, and emotional clutter that's lowering your frequency. It means reconnecting with your purpose, owning your self-worth, and becoming emotionally self-sufficient. When you're centered in who you are, when you no longer seek her attention to feel valuable, your energy shifts. You move from being someone who needs her to someone who chooses her, and that shift is powerful. That shift is what creates safety. That shift is what allows her to relax into the relationship instead of running from it. Most men think women fall in love with words, actions, or appearances. But what women truly fall in love with is energy, your presence, your stability, your emotional consistency. When your energy is aligned with confidence and inner peace, you become magnetic. When your energy is scattered and filled with uncertainty, you become emotionally expensive to be around. And no matter how much she loves you, no matter how deeply she feels for you, a woman will subconsciously choose distance over instability every single time. Because the feminine cannot surrender to a masculine energy that feels lost within itself. She won't feel safe. She won't feel secure. She won't trust the space you're holding for her. You can say all the right things, buy her gifts, show her affection, and still lose her connection if your energy is off. But when your energy is in alignment, when you're emotionally clear, mentally focused, and spiritually grounded, she will feel that on a soul level. You won't need to prove yourself. You won't need to chase or convince. She'll feel drawn to you because your energy makes her feel at home. When a woman begins to ignore you, your mind doesn't just notice her silence, it reacts to it. It rushes in with stories, assumptions, and theories to fill the gap between what's happening and what it thinks is happening. The mind is uncomfortable with uncertainty, and so it creates narratives to protect you from emotional discomfort. But what most people don't realize is that those stories, although they feel real, are often complete illusions constructed from past pain, fear, and limiting beliefs. The moment she withdraws, the inner voice starts whispering, "She must be tired of me. I knew I wasn't enough. She's probably with someone else. Or this always happens to me." These thoughts take root and grow rapidly, distorting reality until you can no longer see the situation for what it truly is. The mind is an incredible tool, but it becomes dangerous when it's left unchecked, especially when emotions are involved. Emotional triggers activate old wounds, abandonment, rejection, betrayal, and before you even realize it, you're reliving a scenario from your past, not responding to the present. She might just be processing her own emotions, needing space to think, or even battling her own insecurities. But your mind doesn't give her that grace. It runs with fear-based conclusions because that's what it's been conditioned to do. If you've ever been left, lied to, or hurt before, your mind keeps that memory stored like a file, ready to pull it up the moment something feels familiar. So now, even the smallest pause in communication feels like the beginning of the end. What complicates this even more is that these stories often sound incredibly convincing. They speak in your voice. They use your memories as evidence. They create scenarios that seem logical, and you begin to emotionally react to things that haven't even happened. You might feel anxiety over a text she didn't send, anger over a tone she never used, sadness from an outcome that hasn't even arrived. And the more attention you give these thoughts, the more power they gain. They start to affect how you behave. You might become distant yourself, or start demanding answers, or act cold in a subconscious effort to protect yourself first. But all of that behavior is now based on a story, not truth. This is how self-sabotage begins, not because you're broken, not because you're needy, but because your unobserved mind is playing out an old emotional script that has nothing to do with the woman in front of you. You don't see her anymore. You see your projection of her, filtered through your pain. And she, in turn, begins to feel misunderstood. Instead of feeling emotionally held, she feels judged or pressured. Instead of being given room to breathe, she's pushed into explaining herself before she's even processed her own emotions. What started as a small moment of space now becomes a full-blown disconnect because the mind went unchecked and the story took over. The key is learning to pause before reacting, to step back and observe what the mind is doing instead of believing every thought it generates. This is not easy because the mind moves quickly. It presents its stories as truth, backed with emotion. But once you begin to recognize the patterns, you gain back your power. You start to see the difference between what's real and what's imagined. You can ask yourself, is this really happening, or am I reacting to a fear I've felt before? That question alone can dissolve 1,000 false narratives. Because when you bring awareness to your thoughts, they begin to lose their grip, and in that space, clarity emerges. Another truth many people overlook is that we often project onto others what we fear most within ourselves. If you have a deep fear of being abandoned, you'll interpret any distance as abandonment. If you fear not being good enough, you'll view her silence as proof of your unworthiness. But none of these interpretations are actually hers, they are yours. They stem from your inner world, and unless you heal those emotional wounds, you will keep seeing them reflected back at you in every relationship, over and over again. Healing is not about changing the other person, it's about changing how you perceive. When you shift your perception, you shift your emotional experience. The most powerful thing you can do when a woman pulls back is not to chase her, not to demand reassurance, not to spin stories in your head, but to sit with your own reaction. To observe the discomfort without trying to escape it. To breathe through the silence and remember that love is not built through control, but through emotional presence. Your ability to hold space for uncertainty, to remain steady in your own energy, to not collapse under the weight of your own mental stories, that is what transforms how others respond to you. It shows emotional leadership, it shows grounded masculinity, it shows that you are no longer enslaved to the chaos of your mind. And when a woman senses that, even if she's afraid or overwhelmed, she begins to feel safe. Not because you forced her to, but because your emotional clarity created space for connection rather than fear. When a woman ignores you, especially one who deeply loves you, it stirs something primal inside, a discomfort that's often misunderstood. You may think it's about her actions, her silence, her lack of response, but in truth, what you're feeling is a confrontation with your own inner disconnection. The distance she creates is not just emotional. It reflects the very parts of you that have gone unnoticed, unloved, or rejected by you. And that sting, the ache that arises when she pulls away, isn't just about her absence. It's about the loud presence of your own unmet needs rising to the surface. Most people walk through life disconnected from themselves, especially men who are taught to stay strong, silent, and stoic. They suppress emotions, distract themselves with work, status, or surface pleasures, and rely heavily on external validation to feel a sense of worth. Then, when someone they love begins to pull away, the illusion breaks. Suddenly, all the love they depended on, all the attention that made them feel alive, begins to fade, and they're left face with the parts of themselves they've been ignoring. It's not her ignoring you that hurts the most. It's that without her attention, you're forced to feel your own emptiness. You're forced to look within, and for many, that's more terrifying than rejection itself. This is the emotional mirror few people are prepared to face. A woman's withdrawal, while painful, is often the catalyst for a deeper awakening. It exposes the emotional dependence that's been hiding under the surface. You may say you love her, but if her absence breaks your identity, then what you've been feeling isn't just love, it's attachment. Attachment to being seen, to being chosen, to being needed. And when those things are taken away, the real work begins, not in trying to fix the relationship, but in repairing the fractured relationship you have with yourself. This is where most men fall into a destructive pattern. Instead of turning inward, they turn outward. They start to chase, they seek answers, reassurance, clarity, anything to avoid sitting with their own discomfort. They reach out excessively, scroll through old messages, try to decode her silence, and convince themselves that if they just say or do the right thing, she'll come back. But this behavior only deepens the wound, not because it's wrong to care, but because when your emotional center is dependent on someone else's attention, you've already given your power away. True connection begins with reconnection to your own heart, your own mind, your own emotional truth. The pain you feel when she withdraws isn't meant to break you. It's meant to wake you up. It's a signal that there's a deeper part of yourself that's been neglected, and now it's demanding your presence. This is your opportunity to sit in silence and ask, where have I been ignoring myself? Where have I abandoned my own needs, my own desires, my own emotional truth? And those answers won't come from a quick fix. They come from facing the discomfort you've spent years avoiding. It takes courage to be still in the silence, to let go of the urge to fix, chase, or explain. But in that stillness, something powerful happens. You begin to reclaim the parts of yourself you thought needed someone else to validate. You start to build emotional independence. You stop outsourcing your worth. You realize that the love you were looking for from her attention, affirmation, presence, is the very love you need to start giving yourself. When you do this work, your energy changes. You are no longer a man who needs her to feel whole. You're a man who is whole and chooses to love without fear, without demand, without the need for constant reassurance. And ironically, that's when she often returns not to a man desperate for her attention, but to a man who has found his center. Because now your energy speaks differently. You're not reactive. You're not emotionally erratic. You don't pressure her for answers. You understand that love isn't control. Love is freedom. You allow her the space to feel, to think, to move through her own journey, and you allow yourself the same. This shift in energy doesn't just transform relationship. It transforms your life. Relationships are not here to complete you. They are here to reflect you, and the moment someone you love pulls away, the mirror becomes crystal clear. You see your fears, your emotional dependencies, and your hidden insecurities, but you also get a glimpse of your strength, your capacity for healing, and the depth of your emotional intelligence. You get to see how capable you are of standing in discomfort without letting it consume you, and that is real power. Now secure in the empath's devotion, they test boundaries, ignore emotional cues. Negative emotions are not the enemy. They are messengers, signals, indicators pointing directly toward the places inside of you that are calling for growth. When you feel rejected, ignored, or unloved by someone you deeply care about, the natural tendency is to want to escape the feeling, to numb it, suppress it, distract from it, or even blame the other person for causing it. But the truth is, those heavy feelings are not punishments, they are feedback. And within that feedback lies the blueprint to your next level. If you ignore or resist them, you stay trapped in the same emotional cycle. But if you listen to them, lean into them, and allow yourself to feel them fully without judgment, you'll find they are guiding you toward transformation. Pain is not there to destroy you. Pain is there to awaken you. The frustration you feel when someone pulls away, the loneliness that creeps in during silence, the sadness that rises when expectations aren't met, these aren't random emotional storms. They are indicators of emotional patterns you've carried, perhaps for years, maybe even since childhood. And they are offering you an invitation not just to heal, but to step into a higher version of yourself. But the only way through it is to feel it, to stop distracting yourself, to stop blaming circumstances, and to begin treating these negative emotions like a compass. Every negative emotion carries a question underneath it. Loneliness asks, where am I disconnected from myself? Rejection asks, where am I seeking permission to feel worthy? Anger asks, what boundary have I ignored for too long? Sadness asks, what part of me have I abandoned? These questions, when explored without judgment, begin to open doors that no external success, relationship, or validation ever could. Because what you're really doing is reclaiming the power you gave away the moment you tied your emotional peace to someone else's behavior. Most people avoid this work. They'd rather distract themselves with temporary pleasures or run from relationship to relationship, trying to avoid feeling these emotional lows. But growth doesn't happen on the surface. It happens in the depths. When you're willing to sit with the discomfort and allow it to teach you, you begin to notice something miraculous. You're not broken. You're becoming, you're shedding the layers that were never truly you, layers of unworthiness, fear, shame, and doubt, and making room for authenticity, for for confidence, for emotional mastery. The most successful, fulfilled, and emotionally grounded people aren't the ones who have never felt pain. They're the ones who have learned how to use pain as a teacher. They understand that a setback is just a setup for a deeper breakthrough. That when life takes something away, it's also creating space for something more aligned. That when a person walks away, it's often to make room for you to walk back home to yourself. But you can't see this clearly until you stop resisting your emotions. Resistance creates suffering. Acceptance creates freedom. Think of negative emotions like weights in a gym. At first, they feel heavy, uncomfortable, even unbearable. But the more you engage with them, the stronger you become. Emotional strength is not built through avoidance, it's built through awareness. The more you train yourself to feel rather than flee, to observe rather than overreact, the more power you gain over your internal world. And when you own your internal world, your external world begins to shift. This is where destiny begins to change. Because once you've made peace with your negative emotions, once you've learned how to sit in pain without letting it define you, you become unshakable. You're no longer swayed by someone else's silence. You're no longer thrown off center when things don't go your way. You begin to create your reality from a place of internal alignment rather than external validation. And people feel that. A woman can feel when a man has done the inner work. She can sense when his love is coming from overflow, not lack. She feels safer not because he controls the outcome, but because he has mastered his emotional response to it. And that's the real secret to transformation. You don't change your life by avoiding pain. You change it by using pain as a portal. A doorway, a gateway to higher consciousness. Every time you embrace discomfort with awareness, you activate a deeper version of yourself. A version that is not run by fear or scarcity or neediness. A version that leads with intention, with clarity, and with emotional depth. That version of you is not just attractive, it's magnetic. Not because of what you say or what you have, but because of who you've become through what you were willing to feel. And the more you practice this, the more those old cycles of rejection, abandonment, and emotional chaos begin to dissolve. You begin to rise not in spite of your negative emotions, but because of them. They became your teachers. They showed you who you really are underneath the noise. They stripped away the ego and revealed the soul.